Howdy folks, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. 2017 Suzuki DR-Z400S. And it supposedly runs like crap. So we're going to fix it. I suspect it's completely carburation based on what the customer told me. Based on the fact that he didn't apparently store it properly. Drained all the fuel out of the tank, but didn't out of the carb. So when he went to start it back up, he put some fresh fuel in. Turned it to prime to refill the carburetor, which is a proper, procedure. Then fired it up. It fired right up, he said, and then just died and wouldn't come back. A little starter fluid proved it wasn't compression because that kicked it up, but it wouldn't run. So we definitely have a fuel issue in the carb, most likely all gummed up. Slow jets, maybe the main, who knows. So let's take a quick walk around here. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this right now is this is going to be for sale as soon as I get done with it. So if anybody out there is interested in buying this from my customer, you reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with him. Again, it's a 2017. We'll take a look at the mileage or hours, whatever the hell it's got up on that digital display. I don't remember how that works, but I know it at least lists one or both. So we'll take a look at that later. Okay, so I know for a fact she's got good rubber. These are Dunlop D606s. This is an excellent street legal DOT approved dual sport tire. Very aggressive knobbies, but again, DOT, street legal. I think I may have put these on, actually, a few years ago. I don't remember. But anyway, same on the front, D606. She's got some blemishes, but, who doesn't? I mean, just look at my face. It's got blemishes, too. But it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Nor is this a bad motorcycle. This is a pretty good bike. In fact, I'll tell you right now that if you're going to get into serious dual sporting, and I mean serious stuff, and you're not going to buy a KTM because, number one, they break down a lot, in my opinion, and number two, they are wicked expensive. This is the bike for you. The DR-Z400S is probably one of the most capable dual sport bikes out there. Smaller than a KLR 650 or a DR 650, and certainly bigger than the DR 350s and the KLX 250. So it's right in that mid-range, but it's got a lot of torque. Great running motor, low on coolant. We'll check that too. And otherwise, just a great bike. Sprockets appear to be okay, at least the rear. I'm not going to look at the front for you, sorry. That's not part of this job. But again, what is we're going to get it running right. So let's set you up in the stand, and we'll crank it over and see exactly what it's doing, because I have not done that yet. Alright, the first thing that I'm worried about is it's left on prime. I don't know if you just turned that on this morning. I doubt it. This has probably been this way for days, and that's not good. There's no evidence of it overflowing the carb, though, which is nice. There's no gas around. I just hope we don't have any inside the cylinder. I'm going to put it on light choke or enricher, and I'm going to spin it over just a little bit to see how it sounds. If it sounds like it's going to hydrolock, then we're going to stop. But let me give it a couple of bumps here and see what we got. Clutch interlock. Remember, Suzuki does that. Some other bikes do too, but in particular Suzuki likes to do that. When I deal with this, all I do is just put a couple of wire ties on it, hold the clutch in. Contact. That sounds okay, so let's go with full choke. Doesn't seem like there's any fuel that's been pouring into the combustion chamber. Not cranking very fast either. That's not good. Alright. We ain't got jack crap, buddy. So, let's, what are we going to do now? I'll turn it off. Let's turn the fuel on instead of prime. Let's go ahead and hit the drain on the bottom of the carb, and we'll see if it's got some fuel in the float bowl. It's supposed to be drain hoses on these, but they never are. Ugh. Oh, that's tight. Got a JIS screwdriver on it too, but she is tight, tight, tight. So that leads me to believe there's a lot of junk in there. Let me give one more shot. Oh, there it goes. Oh, yes. Thank you. If there's no gas in it. He said he put gas in it. Now it's on prime. Okay. Let's check that. Well, folks,
It ain't got no gas in it.
So let's go ahead and put some in. Folks, I've been waiting a while for the time where I could use that clip. Alright, on prime, I got some gas in it. Well, folks, on prime, shouldn't have any issues with getting gas through here. Put a better part of a gallon in, that should be plenty. Can you see with my fat head? Oh boy. Well, you know what it could be? It could be so much crap in the bottom of this float bowl that the drain is plugged. So that is not necessarily a valid test at this point. Now we can take the screw all the way out, but it really, the tip of it does not look bad, see? So that may not be it either. I don't know. We might have a fuel supply issue at the fuel cock. Who knows? So tank's got to come off anyway to get the carb out. So what I'm going to do off camera, here's what we're going to do. This is the plan. Here's the treatment plan for the patient. What we're going to do is I'm going to pull the seat, body work, everything needs to come off to get the tank and ultimately carb off. We'll take the tank off. We'll verify we got flow. We can also do that by popping this off. Why didn't I think of that? Sometimes this guy's brain is just not working. Why don't we just do that? Which way is that again? Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, we got fuel. Yep. What are our choices here of a preliminary differential diagnosis? Either the float is stuck. I don't know. You know what? Let's pop it back on and see if it starts. Or it pops or anything. Because we should be getting fuel out of the drain, but we're not. We just could have completely blocked up carb here. Yeah, I bet we do. Let's try it anyway, though. Yeah, she's got nothing. Alright. Most likely, either the float valve is stuck closed because it's all gummed up, or that drain is at the bottom of the float bowl completely blocked up as well, or both, or a combination of a number of things. But this thing is just not going to fire. We'll get the battery on trickle charge while I'm doing that, and again, we'll stay with the same plan. We'll go ahead and pull all the plastics in the seat off camera, and then get the tank off. All right. Once I get all that stuff off, we'll come back and we'll work on getting the carb off. Because the way it smells right now, I can start to get that faint odor of varnish. The tank does not smell that way. I think he did a pretty good job of draining the tank out, but this has got to be full of bad gas. So let's do that. Found something. Let me try it one more time before we go through all that. I want to see if it runs now. I'll explain here in a second. Put my Zeus jumper on there. I want to spin this over a little bit quicker. Just try one thing. What I found was that the vacuum line that goes to this vacuum fuel cock was off, disconnected. So that would give us a huge vacuum leak. So I wanted to put that on and try that first, but we're not getting any better. So we definitely have to continue with the dismantling and get deeper into it. But hey, when I saw that, I figured I'd give it a shot. You know, why not? All right, folks, there's a service manual detail for carb removal. This is a manual. Unfortunately, it only goes up to 09, but these haven't changed since the beginning of time. So they're going to be pretty much the same, even for all the carb detail, float height, and all that stuff. This removal, rather, is actually pretty simple. But we'll get to the more detail on that. I just want to show you what it says. Fuel tank, frame covers, which are the plastics. We already took those off. We're going to disconnect a TPS sensor and a piston valve control solenoid coupler. I'm not sure if that has it on this model. Throttle cables, vent hose and vacuum hose, and then loosen the carburetor clamps. And then remove the carburetor assembly, which is easier said than done. So let me show you where a couple of these things are. Well, there's your TPS sensor itself. The cable runs up behind this and through this restraint, and the plug is right there, that black one. We can see a little bit of the yellow wire there. It's a 3-wire. You can wiggle it a little bit and see. Yeah, there it is right there. All right. So vent hose, they want this off. And vacuum hose, we're going to pull it off from the other side. getting at the throttle cables is actually pretty easy on this one from the other side, as you can see. So let me do all that stuff, and then we're going to get into the actual carb wrestling. It's not really removal, it's wrestling. And on this particular one, it's not a ginger or gentle procedure, folks. Now, I've loosened the airbox up just because sometimes you can get a little bit of extra room here, or a little bit of extra flex on this helps, but it's not going to really help too much in this. It's only a few bolts, so I did it anyway. Couldn't remember if I've done it before, but anyway, I did it. There's your back band clamp, which is for the for where it goes into this sub area of the airbox, this connector. I have found that removing this band clamp completely, you have to bend it a little bit, but that's okay. Spread out, and then take it out. Helps immensely. You'll see why here in a minute. And then your front band clamps. Now I'm going to loosen both of them because if this thing wants to take the carb holder off the engine side, that's fine with me too, because this thing is not easy to get out. So service manual again says loosened carburetor clamp screws, so that's plural. So that means I think they want you to do both of them, and then remove the carburetor. So that's what we're going to do. So stand by. All right, so I have the back band clamp off. That one's a little more difficult because it gets hung up on stuff. But, you just basically separate it and then just bend it out a little bit. And then essentially what you do is you just follow the curvature of it and it'll come right off. In this case, it was like this. And I also took the band clamp off the front one. Same deal. This band clamp, this particular one goes up like this with the screw up. Got to remember that because it may not be designed to go down. I don't know. And the same thing, you just separate it, just bend it out a little bit, and then just kind of follow it out. And the major amount you're opening it up is just this diameter right here. It's not a big deal. They clamp up just fine afterwards. But trust me, it's going to be worthwhile in the end. I'm pretty sure it just kind of levers out this way. So essentially it's like opening a door. But I don't exactly remember. You have to kind of try it. And you're stretching this rubber a lot. And I have the front one loose too, so if it wants to come off with it, that's fine with me. Because it's just a lot of force. Some cuss words, which I'll try to omit. And folks, there ain't no fun getting them back in either. So I'm going to put some silicone spray, some generous amount here. As soon as it starts rocking, little of that spray will kind of get itself in there and help loosen up that seal between the rubber and the aluminum that's been there since, because it's been on there so long. I can't think of a good anecdotal type joke for that, so I guess I'll say nothing. Now there's a little tab down here, rubber tab, and if I remember correctly, you can use that when you're putting it back in. You kind of grab this with, your pliers, kind of like, pulling a tongue out, somebody's tongue out. If you want it to look down their throat, how doctors do that. They'll reach in with a little gauze pad and they'll pull your tongue if they want to look back in the back of your throat. It's kind of like that when you're going to put it back in. All right, but it may help us or it may not when we go to take it out. So basically, we just kind of force the thing out. No other way to put it. Push that one behind it. There we go. If you push this one in from back here and get that edge that's being pinched between the frame and the intake bell of the carburetor, then you just kind of press it in to clear the frame. There you go. Now she'll come out. We were just hanging up a little bit on this hose which goes in the airbox, which actually goes over to the collector for the crankcase vent. I chose to loosen this and get it kind of pushed back a little bit. It just helps me access this, the rear or the bottom throttle cable, which is the pull cable. So that wasn't all too bad. Like I said, when we go to put it back in, we'll kind of pull on this and see if we can get 200 or 300 things done at once here. Pop it back in place. So that's it. You just kind of wrestle it out. Try to do no harm, as we say, or they say in the medical profession. Now we'll plug the intake to make sure nothing goes inside there we don't want to go inside there. And then we'll take a look at the cob. Got her up here on my cafeteria tray. These are very handy for this, and I'm certain that your lunch lady never served anything like this to you before or anybody else. But then again, after seeing what they serve in schools, maybe this is actually better, but I digress. Now we know that we don't have any fuel in her, at least we couldn't get any out, so let's take that out again. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to do my normal rule that I have, is to do an overview of any carburetor or carb rack that I take out, kind of give it a look-see. Okay, the first thing I notice is probably nobody's messed with this carburetor because the cap is still on the slow screw. Now we have to get that out to clean this. So what we're simply going to do with that, and this is most likely in the service manual, most of the service manual have this procedure in it, is, see this little hole there? Well, that cap is not flush down to the actual top of the screw. So we can take a slightly larger drill bit on that hole and just drill that out so we can get a pick tool in or a small screwdriver and just lever that plug out. We're not going to put one back in. So hope the EPA is not listening. But anyway, that is in the service manual as well. That circuit has to be clean. We have no choice but to get that slow screw out. Now, what I'll tell you is for any government agents that are listening, that my intention is to replace that with a new one. Okay, stop laughing. And yeah, and so we'll get that out to clean that circuit. It has to be done. I doubt this carburetor's even been cracked, which makes sense because I never did it, and I'm not sure if he would have brought it anywhere else. Yeah, this looks like it's some sort of an air cut valve like you see in other carburetors, but it must get its vacuum source internally since there's no tap on it for that. Not 100% sure what that is, but probably is. This is another reason why you need a JIS screwdriver for this stuff, folks, because you'll round these out fast without one. Now, even if you have a JIS screwdriver and you can't get one out, it wants to either threaten to cam out or it already has once, you can take a small bit and just take a tappy tap tap hammer and start hitting on that, kind of shock it and then give it another shot. We may actually have to do that with that one. This is your idle speed control. Let's get that out of the way. Adjuster, rather. Alright, so that's 3. Let's give number 4 a shot here again. Oh, I got it. Yeah, sometimes these are really tight. So that's another thing that leads me to believe that this carburetor has never been gone through. But then again, it's a 17. It's not an 07 or a 1987 of a different make model. Yeah, so again, your idle speed adjustment is held in by one of these screws. That would go that way and then pop back in. So we will keep that in mind before we put it back together, right by the TPS. Of course, with this thing hanging here, it's kind of hard not to see it. We have a cable restraint on this one. We'll keep in mind that it's by the fuel inlet. I may use varying nomenclature for the same thing, same item, but a different term. Depends on how my brain is reacting at that particular moment. All right. Tappy tap tap. Oh yeah. All that green crap in there, very likely from like Stable or another fuel stabilizer. And when that gets old and the fuel dries up, a lot of times you'll see that green. Give it a gander inside here, see what we got. This piece here goes down into that slot of the same shape. So you can kind of see the two of them together. You see the shape. Now what does that do is, what does that do? God, grammar. What it does is it kind of covers that very lowest part of the float bowl where this main jet would be immersed and keeps the fuel from sloshing around. Remember, this is a off-road and on-road bike. So it's kind of like a little fuel baffle to keep that fuel down in there from sloshing around and getting away from the main jet for even a microsecond, and then having the thing run lean or something, especially when you're right in the middle of doing something critical as far as a off-road endeavor. You don't want the thing to take a shit on you, So that's what that's for. Now we're going to be real careful when we take these jets out. Now I'm going to show you some right now off the top here, which is, I think, super important. Let me get a light and I'll show it to you. There's your 3 jets. The one right here, this taller one, skinnier one, is the slow jet. Naturally, the one that sticks down furthest in the carburetor, float bowl, is the main jet. And that little guy right there is the enricher jet. Now I've shown you on many other carburetors that that is not a jet, it's actual, like a permanent jet. It is a jet, but it's a permanent one, it's just a hole. You know, it almost looks like that, right there, but inside the carb, right? You've seen that before. Now the reason why I'm bringing this up is, take a look at the main and that enricher jet. They're essentially identical as far as the size of the jet goes. In fact, if I can guarantee you, if you went to replace that jet, the enricher jet, you would have to go into the main jet section on like Niche Cycle or other jet suppliers to find that jet, because essentially it's a smaller version of a main jet. I'm only mentioning this because it's real easy to switch those by accident. Take a carb apart and you throw these jets in the same little container like this, and then you go put it back together, and it starts great, but it won't throttle up at all because you've switched the jets. So you have a smaller jet in the main and a larger one in the enricher. Now I don't know what these numbers are. It's irrelevant at this point. We will take a look at that. I have a rebuild kit that I think comes with jets. So if it does have the exact same size jets, we will use the rebuild jets. So that's what I wanted to show you. Now we're going to go ahead and take it apart. I'll do the jet removal off camera. You don't need to see that. And we'll get the floats out. We'll take a look at that float valve, which, as we suspected, is stuck. We're not getting any movement of the actual float. So that's why carburetor wasn't getting no fuel, is because the float valve is stuck. Now this float valve is removable. You can see the little screw right there. That's the float seat I meant. The float seat is removable. So we'll be taking that out, and if it's removable, it has an O-ring in there. So you never want to reuse that. You want to put a new one in, a whole new seat, or at least a new O-ring. Because otherwise it'll bypass the seat and just fill the carburetor up and overflow it. So that's what I want to show you. So we were right as far as our suspicions go that we have a stuck float valve. And I wanted to show you the jet orientation there. Alright, so let me get the rest of it apart on the bottom side of the carburetor here, and then we'll come back. I'm also going to go ahead and drill this out off camera. Just, if you're going to do this, just stick the tip of the drill through. Don't ram it in there. You're going to hit the top of the screw. Just get a, you know, it's only because you can't quite get a tool in this little tiny hole. So you just want to put a little bit of a bigger hole in it. Take a pick tool or something and then just lever that thing out. Okay? That way we can adjust it too, because I don't know if we're going to need to adjust this thing. There we go. Don't worry about getting any chips in there. It's got to get cleaned anyway. Now this will go. And we can use that or just use a tool in there. There it goes. See how it started to turn? I hope you can see that. The plug is turning with the screw now. So we'll just take it out. And there it is. And there it is. Alright, so that's all you really got to do. Crusty. There it goes. Alright. She's pretty stuck, so that seat has to be all full of junk. And you get a kind of an idea that it's pretty gorked up in there. Give it a twist. Voila. I'm going to get this pilot screw out. Now, because this was factory set, I want to know what the turns were. So we'll screw it in first. 2.5. This was 2.5 turns out. We'll keep that in mind. Alright guys, I ended up pulling the TPS. There's no problem immersing this as far as the throttle shaft goes. I end up dribbling some WD-40 in these after I clean them out, and that will kind of leach in a little bit and displace any moisture that's still in there. I've never ever had a problem doing that. So we are going to do the entire carb body. It's just too crusty and, well, not crusty, but just dirty to not do it. And then we'll do the float bowl and everything else. Now I'm going to do all this stuff off camera. Let me get all this stuff cleaned up. Let's stop babbling and let's get to it. Okay, so I think I mentioned before, I hope I did, that I pulled the TPS so I could give this a proper bath in the ultrasonic. If I didn't, I'm sorry. If I did, and apologize for the redundancy. So we have to reset this. So there's essentially a two-step process to do this because it's a 3-wire TPS. So the service manual is pretty good on Suzuki to explain, Suzuki's pretty good rather about how to explain to do this. So the first setting is, or the first measurement is between the blue and the black wire, and it gives you a base setting, which has no effect on throttle rotation. And that base setting is 4.93 kiloohms in this case, which I think is what I measured before. Before I took it off, I measured those 2 wires. And then you take that number and you multiply it times 78%, and that will be your wide open throttle number. We switch over from the blue to the black to the yellow, and we're looking for 3.845 or thereabouts, wide open throttle, and we're at 846, close enough. Yeah, 845, right on the money. So this is properly set now, back where it was. I got the jets cleaned, the emulsion tube is clean, I've got that O-ring on the emulsion tube back in, brand new. I got the pilot jet in its proper spot. Obviously it can only go one place, but my point here is that these 2 jets, remember, are the exact same size as far as the thread and the body of the jet. It's very easy to get these mixed up. On this particular carb, the main is 142.5. The slow is a 22.5. That matches up with the service manual. The service manual does not tell you what the enricher jet is. I think it's a 62.5. It's very hard to read on there. So when you're putting these back in, even if you can't read them, just make sure you look through them. Once they're clean, you'll see that main jet is big and the enricher jet is much smaller. And of course, these are the only 2 places these guys will go. Now the needle jet in most carbs will come out, and it comes out that way. It comes, essentially this emulsion tube presses up against that, it bottoms on that, and that's what holds it in place. You want to take that out because it could have crud behind it if they are not pressed in. Very easy to tell. Once you take this out, the emulsion tube and the main jet out, just reach in here and give it a push. If it starts to move, then take something that won't hurt it down through the bore and push it the rest of the way out, and of course reverse the process after it's clean. By the way, the float bowl is done. That came out exceptionally well, and it came with a new drain screw, so that is already installed. And by the way, the kit does come, this particular kit comes with a new, it's like an air valve or something like that. They call it like a piston valve, and this is the old one. And there's nothing wrong with it that I could tell, but I just went ahead and used the new one, put it in with the new spring, and we're good. So that's good too. So we'll pick it up another day. We'll finish this up. We'll do the float level, and we will do, like I said, the slow jet, put the float bowl back on, get the slide back in, and then we'll finish this carb, get her back in and see how she runs. Okay, folks, the carb is all put back together. I got the float height set. In this case, according to service manual, it's, what is it, 13 millimeter, which calculates over to imperial to 510.510. So I'll put a little 3-in-1 oil, light oil, on the choke mechanism, plunger here in the detent, make sure it's nice and smooth. And otherwise, she's ready to go back in. So let's stop farting around, let's get it in, see how it runs. Just kidding. Alright guys, we got the carb all back in. Replaced, put that band clamp back on the front and one in the back. Got them all tightened up. Got this front one tightened up. Got the vacuum pull for the fuel cock back on, but capped off, of course. Have an auxiliary fuel source with a temporary nice and clean fuel line, because that of course is on the tank over there. I have my auxiliary fuel can suspended from my OSHA approved auxiliary fuel can suspender. Let's go ahead and charge the carb. I think I have enough fuel in this. It's kind of low. I may have to top it off, but this is ethanol free. By the way, I have 2 filters in line on this thing just to make sure. That is tight for the drain. What else did I do? Oh yeah, the cable restraints, wire restraints are back in, and the TPS is hooked back up too. Now we're charging the carburetor as if we had it in the prime setting on the fuel cock. Alright, I'm just going to shut it off because I got it primed just to make sure. Let's give her a shot and see what happens. I think I need to go to that 3 turns on the fuel screw, so I'll do that off camera with my special tool. It's pretty easy to get in this one, and we'll try it. Well, that's interesting. I just don't get this. Why is it wanting to die when you crank it? Gotta think about this one a minute. Alright guys, I wish I could say there was a happy ending to this video, but, well, it's sort of happy. I mean, it runs, but it's not necessarily the case here, because I'm not happy with it, and what's happening is when you really snap that throttle, this thing should pick right up, and it's detonating, so it means it's lean on the low side. I did clean that low jet, the slow jet out, but it was really bad, so there may be some crap in there, and it's not exactly to size. I did not have another new one in stock. I checked my stock and I didn't have one, nor did one come in the kit. So the safe play at this point is just to put the tools away for now, and I'm going to go ahead and order all new jets for it. Brand new OEM jets. And then I'll put them in. And I bet you that's going to clear it up, because you could hear it. It's like knocking when you crank it like that. And we don't want to do that too long. Now I changed the spark plug out, which was pretty nasty actually. Here's the spark plug that was in there. This is a CR8E. I put a CR7E in it. I'm sorry, 9E. CR9E. Now the way NGK works there is the larger the number, the colder the plug. So I put a 9E that I had in stock. It was a lot better than this thing, and it's doing the same thing. I wouldn't say it does it all the time, but it's close. It's like it's right on that edge, so that really is symptomatic of the jet orifice. The slow jet orifice is a little smaller than it's supposed to be, because I did clean it. I even put a jet reamer through it, but just to touch it and to clean it up, and it's probably still got some crud in there. And again, I've run into this before more than once. It's a little bit smaller than it's supposed to be. So that's what we're going to do with it, because it runs good, but when it makes that noise, it is not good for it at all, so we're not going to do it anymore. And I'm going to go ahead and order jets, as I said, and we'll get those in, and then we'll take it from there, because about all we can do at this point, because of the situation the way it is. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So I guess we'll just close it out, say, sorry we didn't have 100% repair on this, but hopefully you got something out of it, learned something from it, maybe some takeaways, like always change jets, which I normally do, but unfortunately I just didn't have them, and I kind of assumed the kit came with them. Most kits do, so yeah, assume you make an ass out of you and me. So don't be an ass. Watch the next video by subscribing, ring the bell, like the video, helps my analytics. Till next time, don't just repair, restore. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next video.